All right, so I got this question from someone that had seen one of my presentations, and it effectively was, "Hey, I'm using, or I work for a company that is part of the Office 365, Microsoft 365 ecosystem, and we have Microsoft Planner. And how can I best use Planner in order to just sort of use Kanban to tame my personal workflows, right? Personal productivity, personal Kanban." And it was actually a pretty good question because it's been a really long time since I've used Microsoft Planner. And I thought what I would do is instead of me trying to figure it out on my own, I'm just going to sort of record this as almost like an unboxing video to see what it takes to get Microsoft Planner to work and offer some thoughts about the Kanban methodology. So I'm going to start just real quick. These are high level, the core practices of the Kanban methodology. And you don't need to read them to you, but making the work and the workflow visible, that obviously is sort of the core function of a Kanban board. Beyond that, I find that different software tools have a lot of different capabilities when it comes to supporting these other Kanban practices. So limiting WIP or work in progress, making policies explicit so that they're easily visible and understandable by the people on the team, managing the work for flow as opposed to managing different parts of the workflow for individual efficiency, implementing feedback loops, making sure that we're investigating and adjusting our behavior based on what we learn, and then improving collaboratively through experiments. That doesn't really come into play as much with personal Kanban, although I'll also say there's not any clear line where personal Kanban ends and team Kanban begins. So a lot of team Kanban boards actually sort of start as personal Kanban. So with that, I'm just going to go over here and log into Planner and see, and see what I can learn. I have not really set anything up at all. And so as I see this, I see that they got this thing called the hub and they want me to create a plan. And I'm going to assume that a plan is a board, although it's interesting. So they give me a few templates. It looks like there's not too many. A simple plan, project management, software development. So I'm going to actually, let's see what this simple plan says. So we've got a backlog, an up next, and in progress. You know, that's probably pretty close to what I would be doing. I think. Well, again, let's see what this is. So I'm going to say John's personal Kanban. I don't have a group, and do I need to set? I guess I'll set it as private for now, and I'm going to go ahead and create. Let's see what it comes up with. Thinking through some stuff. Okay. So this isn't bad. So let's start with what I would consider to be basic Kanban. So I'm going to wonder, can I collapse this? No. Customize buckets. This is a task. Sorry, I'm going to go through these tooltips real quick. Okay, so they're calling these buckets, which is interesting. I've sometimes used that term to, I think of them as columns, right? They're columns on a Kanban board, but they're calling it buckets. So we'll go with that. Customize buckets to organize your tasks within them. Yes. Click the drop down to add members for my organization. I don't have any, so that's good to know. And it looks like they've given me a few defaults. So create a plan, right? They're telling me, okay, again, what they're calling a plan is what I think of as a board, right? This is a Kanban board. And so apparently I've created this plan. I can mark that as done. Oh, and that's interesting. So that's a task. Okay, so I'm trying to figure this out. Customize buckets. So it wants me to edit the name of the bucket in my project. So we'll call this, instead of completed, we'll call this done, because I think that's actually a little bit better anyway. So let's say that I've done that. I've got a couple of labels, and there was a tooltip that I didn't read, so I'll have to go back and figure that out. So if I mark this task complete, what happens to That's interesting. So I've got the task complete. Really, there's no other tasks on this in progress thing. So I would move this to, oh no. I would move this, how do I? Huh. Um, that's so weird. I don't understand what it's trying to do. So I can't move this card into done. Um, what else can I do here? I can do completed. Oh, so I have to change the bucket, and I can't drag and drop. That's wow, that's really interesting. Okay. So okay, so here's what this tells me. Um, oh, now where did, oh, completed task. So I see. So in each one of these buckets, I get a list. Man, this is interesting. This is not Kanban as I think of Kanban. What this is a list of lists. And the fact that you can't even drag things from one list to another is really concerning to me because the whole point of Kanban is to be able to get work to flow from left to right. And, I guess there is, and maybe bucket is what makes sense in the context of what Microsoft is trying to do here. Um, but I don't know why, again, I don't know why you'd have this up next and in progress if you can't actually, oh no, this one I can move. So that's weird. All right. So what's the difference here? What am I missing? This was a card. Oh, now it's letting me move it. It wouldn't before. Okay. Well, sorry. I guess maybe scratch some of what I talked about there. Because it sure wouldn't let me move it before. Okay, I'm gonna go on then. So we've got these cards, right? So high level, what we're doing with Kanban is we are using the board to represent a high level workflow, and in this case, even though it doesn't feel necessarily like a workflow, it really is a personal workflow. So this is the columns on this board are a description of how work gets from my list of things that I maybe could be doing into the list of things I'm actually doing, this in progress column or bucket, as they say, and then move them through into a done column. And so, again, as I work through this, additional information to tasks. So I can do some things in here. So I can add labels. It looks like these labels are pretty lightweight. There's different colors. Presumably I can, well, let's see here. Can I edit instead of calling it pink? I might say urgent, I guess. Yeah, so I can edit these labels, which is helpful. I can set some although, so I just called that urgent, but really there's a priority thing over here. So I didn't need to call that urgent. There's already this notion of priority that's in here. I can do progress. So again, what's interesting to me, and I don't even know where is there a save button. It keeps wanting to give me attachments or potential attachments. I guess. And that's so funny. That's some random attachments from Depot Micro. I guess I just closed this. There's not like a save button. So that's an interesting one. So, and again, what just happened? I don't know why. Like, where's this card going? I'm really confused. I find this interface to be pretty clunky. Maybe it's going to make more sense if I try to start some of these things on my own. So I'm actually going to just delete a couple of these. Looking for, again, some add new tasks. Yeah. So one of the things that I can't tell here, again, is what does it think of as a card and what does it think of as a task? So, in other tools, I think of as a card as being, maybe indicative of a small or mid-sized project, right? So let's say that I, onboard a new client, I'll say Jones. So I want to add that task, and then what's going on? Okay, so, and I can move that, but that's a task. I can add, well, what happens if I add another task here? So let's say onboard, I don't know, Washington. So those are two different things, and I've got this little tick box. What if I wanted to add things to this, though, and say, okay, when I onboard Jones, I want to, checklist. Okay, so I can say send onboarding, or let's call it send engagement letter, send welcome letter. Again, I'm thinking sort of in terms of a law firm, I guess, right now. Set up in whatever our matter management system is. And so those are all the subtasks. And so again, I keep wanting a save button down here and I don't see it, but I guess we get used to that. So, okay, so that's interesting. So now I've got a task that is onboard this new client. Again, I'm kind of making up what these steps might be, but that would live in my backlog, I guess. And as things go, yeah, I can see these things. So I'm just gonna move this on through and get rid of it. This completed tasks is another interesting thing. Sorry, and I'm jumping around a little bit, but like, how do I get, where do these tasks go over time? Like if I'm using this for a week or two, I could wind up with, dozens and eventually hundreds or thousands of completed tasks in here. Do they go away? Is there a way to archive them, copy, label? I can delete them. Doesn't look like there's an archive function though, which is a little strange. Again, sometimes you don't want them to just go away, but you don't want them to be present with you. Yeah, first impressions, I have to say that I find this interface to be really confusing from a Kanban perspective, but I'm going to try to dial it in. So I'm going to just get rid of this one again because it's taking up room. What I'm wondering is, can I set up this checklist? Like I want to copy. So now I've created this checklist. Can I save this? I don't want to have to type out this checklist every time I've got a new client to onboard. And, part of it is I'm trying to figure out. So let's see here. I was trying to get into the support here. So planner. Templates. So I'm wondering if I can create a task checklist, a template for checklist and planner. So let's see. Someone's asked this question already. 84 people have said they have the same. So in the planner task, you create the checklist and then assign this task to users. Again, I kind of find that funny. So next time you can copy the first task to a new one and assign this. Okay, so what am I going to do here? I want to go into here and I'm going to find copy plan, copy link to plan. Yeah, I wonder if that was a little bit older. Group by bucket. I'm stumped, man. This is confusing to me. Assigned to, progress, due date. A lot of what I'm seeing here is that planner, it's not really agile, right? It really, what this is very much a, like I said before, even though you can move the cards, this is behaving to me a lot like a list of lists, right? There's not anything that's inherently set up for flow from left to right through this process. And so it's it's challenging for me to figure out. And it's funny, I guess how I got here. Um, like I'm wondering if I can even, for some reason, I'm finding this little swirl annoying. I'd like it to just be basic, and so I can export it to Excel. I can do some things with it. Oh, plan settings. I wonder if I can do. Oh, I can change the background. Okay, so I can do that. Um, looks like I'm limited to a pretty small set, but that's okay. Depending on what you look for, I'm just going to keep it simple. Um, and I apologize for those of you that are dark moders. I'm a light mode. So, um, okay. So again, what I want to do is get this checklist and figure out how, like, I can move. Whoops, where did that go? Oh, that's interesting. So, got it. Okay. So again, I find its terminology really confusing. So there are checklist items, which is something less than a task. And then what Microsoft is calling a task is what I think of as a card. So now I've got this send welcome letter and I've turned it into a task, again, in my language, a card, but it's not connected to the thing that I just created it from. So part of what I'm looking for, and I came over here. These are just some of the things that I look for when I'm using a Kanban software tool. And you'll see over here this idea of parent-child cards or relationships. And so what I was hoping would happen, well, I didn't know what would happen when I clicked that button actually, but once I saw it, one of the things that I was hoping would happen is that it would stay linked to the thing that it came from, and it doesn't look like it did. So I can copy, no, that's just an HTML link. I can move a task, I can copy a task. Oh, and I see. So this is what it was saying. Now I'm finally getting it from the help. So I can copy this task and I can change it to, a different, thing, and I can decide which of the parts, so I can copy a checklist if I want. And so I guess what this is telling me, and again, the send welcome letter, once I got it off of here, it wasn't there. So I guess what it's telling me is that I guess if I were going to use Planner for work that has sort of a repeatable work plan, right? So, if you're in a law firm, onboarding new matters, if you're maybe in an in-house department, new requests from internal customers, internal clients, whatever it happens to be, I probably, again, if I were stuck using Planner, which, as you can tell, I'm not loving it, what I might do is to create a bucket, what this is calling a bucket, I'm thinking of as a column, and call it my template library. And I would just say, there would be a task that is new client onboarding, and I would add it. And then when I'm in here, I would create a checklist that is, send EL, send welcome, yada, whatever it happens to be. And then instead of, when I got a new request type, instead of just using this add task, what I would do is go over here, I would copy the task, I would do new client onboarding, and I would put it in the backlog bucket, so it's not in that template library thing. And now I've got a template that's got sort of this checklist in it already, and it might be helpful. Okay, couple other things, and actually going back over here. So, and again, I didn't really introduce this, but some things that I'm looking for, right? So obviously columns and cards, I think of as just, that's Kanban 101. So I didn't even put it on this checklist. Let me go down this list. So, WIP limits, work in progress limits. So, as a WIP limit is basically, a machine enforceable way of saying you can't put too much work in any one of these columns. Again, what Microsoft is calling a bucket at the same time. And so, and that's really a a protection mechanism to make sure that you don't throw too much work in progress. You're not juggling too many balls at one time so that you're only doing these light touches on them and none of them are actually making progress. So, the place where I always start in terms of WIP limits is an in progress column. I'm looking here, I can rename it, I can move it. It doesn't look to me like there's an opportunity to do WIP limits, and I can just, again, try a quick, let's see what comes up. WIP limits in Microsoft Planner, configure WIP limits for Kanban board in Azure. So Azure DevOps is the more advanced tool that Microsoft has created. It's sort of more of a competitor to a tool like Jira or Kanbanize, or there's some other ServiceNow. And so part of what I'm seeing here is that I can't do WIP limits in Planner. It looks like they're trying to force me to do it in if I want this advanced functionality, which is not that advanced, Planner is not the tool. So what I might do instead is just create, I don't want to delete, create what I'm thinking of as a soft WIP limit. So, right, so you could do just in the title, say WIP equals 3. Now there's nothing preventing me from putting more than 3 items at a time in there. Obviously, obviously if I jump that, there's no thing, but at least I can, try to enforce what a WIP limit might look like. Yeah, maybe. I mean, again, it's not ideal, but it's that's always an option, right? You can always do this sort of fakey WIP limit just by updating the title and the card. Let's look at what else. Swim lanes, that's another one. Like, I don't see any functionality for swim lanes, which are horizontal lanes across the board. I won't. I don't have another example board up right now, but basically, it's just ways of saying. Of organizing the work in different ways. And like I said, I'm not seeing any way. I don't see any swim lane. We can again, not limits, but swim lanes for Microsoft Planner. There's something about it. So let's see what's in here. A request, ability to add, boop, boop, boop. And it looks like the responses are all, what would you do with it? So I'm not seeing anything that tells me that Planner actually supports swim lanes. Queue columns. So, again, there's sort of a simple example to that, which is anything left of to the left of up next, or sorry, to the left of in progress is a queue. So, we could rename this as the personal queue. When I say queue columns, part of what I'm looking for is comes from measurement. And so you'll see as I go back over here, one of the things I'm looking for is flow reporting. And again, I'm not seeing much in terms of what reporting is available. So executive reports, a Power BI reporting pack. So I guess you've got to have maybe with the Power BI system, there's some ways to do it. I see a few folks have got some YouTube videos, so maybe it is possible. I noticed that none of those are necessarily help from Microsoft, so it's again, I'm not sure exactly what the reporting capabilities are. I don't see a reporting option here anywhere anywhere in the interface. So, to the extent that there is reporting, no, that just closes that up. it looks like maybe it's possible to some extent, but it's not obvious. So in terms of my little checklist, I'm going to call that, I think, a no or a maybe at best. Um, Card tokens, it does have card tokens, right? So this is what Microsoft is calling labels. We can do it in different ways. I'm not going to go into how there's lots of different ways that I've worked with different teams on how to use labels. I appreciate that they're here. Again, it looks like it looks like they're tied to color only, and so there's different ways that we could think of using the color iconography to mean different things. Sometimes, again, just to brainstorm a little bit, sometimes that might be different kinds of tasks. So, whoops, again, if I'm going to edit, if I'm in an in-house team and I have different request types, so some of them might be sales requests, some of them might be, again, I'm having a hard time getting this right. Some of them might be employment, can't spell. There'd be different ways of using these labels, and then on the cards themselves, you'd be able to see, and again, maybe this one too might have employment questions, and at a glance, you'd be able to see what are the different types of work that you have on your board, right? So there might be one that's internal. Oops, let me change this here. Yeah. Internal projects, meetings, if you've got to do personal development, training, there's any number of ways that you can sort of set these labels up. So that's close enough to tokens for me. I mean, it's a pretty common way that I see it. Trello does it like this. I think Asana is pretty close to this. It's not tokens in a robust way that some better tools like Kanban Zone or Kanban use them, but it's something. Let me see, just sort of going through my list. Card blockers. So that's an interesting one. And you'll notice that in the default template, Microsoft uses the word blocked here. And that could be true. I will sometimes call this a waiting column instead of blocked. It may be a little nuanced. What's the difference between waiting on something and a blocker? I usually, when I think of them as being different things, when I have waiting, it's usually waiting on a third party, not usually waiting on an internal resource. Whereas blocked is something that is blocked by something within our control, right? So a blocker that is within my team. There's nothing that says that we couldn't use some of these labels as blockers. So if I'm going to add another label, right, I might use, cranberry, I guess, as saying this is, blocked. I don't know. We'll call it waiting on opposing counsel, right? So something that you might do. So you can use these labels as blockers. There's no reason, right? You couldn't kind of have different things. And again, it conveys the information all the same way. So we can sort of use them as, what I'll call fakey blockers or lightweight blockers. They're not fakey. That's too harsh. And I just, I called it blocked, even though this is a third party responsibility. So again, it's not a clear line on how you set it up, but there's kind of ways to do blockers. So I'll consider that. Board policies is an interesting one. So again, I'm not seeing a way to do that, and it's hard. I don't have another tool up, but there are a lot of systems that will let you sort of have some free text and say, oh, the in progress column means, or this is work that we're actively working on. We've started it, but haven't yet finished. And that's a great, sometimes that's a helpful thing to have in there. Another one, that you might put in a policy, a column policy or a board policy, is some information about what your expected turnaround time is. Sometimes service level agreement or service level expectation. Different teams use different terminologies. I'm not seeing a way to do that, right? So there's nothing in here. Again, we could do, a fakey version of it. I'm going to use that term again. Let's say 24 hours, right, or 1 day, whatever it happens to be, right? Our goal is to move things through here as quickly as possible, right? We want this work to move. We don't want it to get stuck. But this is just informational, so we're not really enforcing any of this. So that's probably a no. In-card messaging. Now, this is an interesting one. I can do notes, and what I don't know is if I can @mention, and it doesn't look like, so there's no like little tooltip or something that's coming up when I do that. I can assign it to a person, including myself. And I can type comments. So there is, so notes and comments. Yeah, so there is a way to do comments in here. Right, so that might be the kind of thing that people send. And again, who am I going to send it to? I don't even know what that just did. Oh, interesting. Okay, so I've got like a little comment thread coming down here. So, yeah, that's interesting. I don't know whether @mentioning isn't working just because I'm a team of one in terms of my Microsoft account. I'm not a heavy Microsoft user. But it looks like you can do a little bit of that. And then I think I've covered all of them. Sorry, I didn't go in order, but let me sort of get a few thoughts on this. So whip limits, I didn't really create an icon for half, but queue columns, not objectively. Tokens, yes. I don't know. I probably need a different icon for this. What's my half? Call it a slash. So I guess, whoops. Whip limits, we can kind of fake. Swim lanes is a no. Queue columns, we can kind of fake. Blockers, again, we can kind of fake. Board policies is a no. In-card messaging is a yes. Converting subtasks, I'm going to call that a partial because it didn't preserve a relationship between the original card and the subtask. So let me go here. I said no on swim lanes. I said no on board policies. I said no on parent-child cards. I said yes on, sorry, you see me do this live. It's probably not the most compelling television. And then we said no on flow reporting. So I call that there. Yeah, so, a couple of partials, right? We can do these card tokens. We can set up a basic Kanban board, but the overall functionality of Planner looks pretty limited to me. Like I said, I don't think of it, based on what I've seen here, I don't think of it as a Kanban tool. I really think of it as being more akin to a list of lists. You can do some rudimentary flow with it, but personally, again, as you've seen, I found myself a little bit frustrated. I'm sure with some work, I could probably, get it working a little bit more like I want it to work. But even though, and I get that there's an advantage for those of you that are using 365, it's probably included with your subscription. If you're in a larger organization, you probably don't have to get permission to go use it. And I get that that's a big advantage too. So, as far as getting started with Kanban, you can do it, right? Like I've sort of set it up here. I've got my backlog, my up next. This is another one I would definitely have a WIP limit of some sort on this, and maybe instead of up next, I might call this next 2 days, because next is a little, whoops, not net. That sounds like I'm billing. Right, next 2 days. Backlog, again, one of the things that I will often do is next week, whoops, so my X key doesn't want to work. So let's maybe say if we're going to do it next week, I might have a WIP limit of, and I'm just kind of making these up, of 15, but I would, basically what I'm trying to do is, instead of backlog, I might call this something like this, brain dump, right? So, the idea, like I mentioned before, is that you are wanting to filter work into your working column or your in progress column. If for some reason you can't finish something that's within your in progress, you might dump it onto the waiting. But the idea is to get it all the way to done. And so when you're setting up a board on a tool like Planner, and again, the same goes for Trello, Asana, some others, one way to think of this is like as a funnel where you're trying to funnel work. And so this should be the narrow part of your funnel, right? You want to make sure that you've got, and even a WIP limit of 3 might be too many, but it's probably a good one to start with a goal of getting it shrunk down eventually. But all in all, right, you want this to be a little bit smaller. This can be a little bit bigger. And then this brain dump might be, pretty big. Although even then, I still think it's helpful, to have a WIP limit of some sort, because not all the ideas that you have are ones that you want to keep track of for the rest of history. And you can add in different layers in here. I mean, I think maybe it's too, there's a point where you get to too many, but it's possible. So I think I'm going to leave it at there. Like I said, I don't love this. I'm a fan of tools that are just a little bit more specific to the Kanban methodology. This is whoops, somehow I dragged this out of my window. Let me get that back. This is what some people refer to as proto Kanban or Kanban light. And like I said, you can hear me waffling. So better than nothing. It's a great way to get started with the methodology. But as you progress and as you get through and get to the point where you need to do some of the things beyond just simple workflows and making the work visible, I think Planner is going to break down pretty quickly. That said, again, probably you could get a few months, maybe more of decent work. I'm sure there's people that will let me know they use Planner and love it. I'm not going to yuck someone else's yum. If it's working for you, then by all means, stick with it, right? Start with what you do now is one of the core concepts of the methodology. Okay, if you have any questions, throw them in a comment to this video. I'll keep track of that. You can always email me at john.grant@agileattorney.com, and hope this is helpful to you. Thanks so much.